Hello, everyone, and welcome to Moonrise. This is Dave Johnson, and I'm channeling the man in the moon today. So, I am very interested to know if the January 6th hearings really are making a difference. Of course, I want to know whether Trump is going to face justice. I'm also going to read on Herschel Walker because I started reading on him with Sheila at Celtic Tarot, but I did not really finish. So let's start with January 6th hearing. Spirit, are they making a difference? They are, I see the face, for example, of Cheney. And you might think of Cheney as an example of a pretty conservative Republican whose mind was changed. So already we have changed some minds. Trump's attempt to take over the government did matter. That matters for she's sort of symbolic of a lot of people. And I'm seeing a sea of people watching, and that give me the feeling of being just, not necessarily the most political people, relatively centrist. There's an audience, and the audience is growing wider and wider. One thing to note is that anyone who watches these hearings is going to come to the same conclusion, and that is that Trump took over the government or attempted to take over the government. And they're riveted. All of these people are riveted. Now, you might say only the left is watching, but that is not really entirely the case. I'm getting a sort of pie slice of this audience, which is like in a huge coliseum. What's that percentage? I'm going to say 20% are certainly not liberals. They're more centrists. There's also a percentage of conservatives that are watching. And it's a fairly thin slice of conservatives, but it is effective at changing their minds. And this is important. Many races are won on very slim majorities from the Republican Party. This is going to alter that dynamic. Those people might not vote for Democrats, but they aren't voting for Trump's choices. And that may be the only choice. A lot of those people will simply abstain. They'll just won't vote. They'll just say, I'm disgusted with both parties. And I'm going to say that looks like maybe 5-10% of the Republicans. So keep in mind, it's about participation. And it's about participation in watching these hearings. And I'm just randomly asking this question, what changes from these people's minds? Like, how are their minds changed? It's not packaged. One thing that was really smart about this hearing is that it wasn't mentioned beforehand. We didn't know what kind of evidence would be presented. We had an idea, but it was not perfectly packaged. So when people started watching, they didn't have preconceived notions of what they were seeing. The evidence spoke for itself. I'm getting like 10-15% of the population that watches, their mind really has been changed. These hearings are much more important for the long term. The conservatives out there who wish to argue with you, they don't really have any arguments they can make against these witnesses. Most of them are Republicans, right? So it's just shocking testimony. Many readers have been predicting this shocking testimony. I know I thought it would come out earlier. However, we were just a little bit ahead of the game. A lot of people who are already on the left were shocked. It's like they already had an idea. Maybe they were just a little bit on the left. But that's also very important. The people who believe what they, people who believe the truth, They are really riveted, really paying attention. That's actually very important because often the left doesn't vote. They just don't bother in the midterms because it's not important enough for them, or because they're a little bit disappointed. People may be disappointed in the president that they've chosen because actions didn't happen quick enough. However, everything's changed. You know, the history that we are told about how things are working, that's not going to happen this time around. It's a totally new ball game. No wonder I'm in a coliseum here. There are significant gains underway for the left. And when I say significant, I'm watching that audience. Half of it is red, half of it is blue. And I'm watching the blue move over. I'm going to say at least 10%. It could be closer to the 10, 15 that I mentioned before. And this is just, you know, maybe those are the centrist Republicans, not the extreme ones. But they are important. They are the key to many swing states. Again, I'm going to just throw out a question. Why are these hearings important? They're facing people to acknowledge the truth. It is not going through a filter of a pundit. It's not going through the filter of a corporation. The information is right there in front of you, and you have to pay attention to it because it is so shocking. And you know, understand a lot of people, they just don't have time. They're working two jobs. They don't have time to pay attention to everything in politics. They can get it for a few minutes watching comedy at night because that's all their system can really handle right now. Forces that be have put them in this situation where they barely have time to relax, and they certainly don't have time to read every article. You can watch just a few moments of these hearings and your mind is changed. These centrists are coming out as being more and more important. Yeah, 60% is what I get for Dems. They seem to be, there does seem to be a social shift that is occurring. You are watching it happen. You might right now be watching, as you are watching these hearings, you might notice those around you. Conservatives are quieter. You might notice that you don't see the talking heads of the conservatives on TV very often. Maybe they exist on Fox News, but many of them were involved and they are keeping quiet. The fake news doesn't have the same power that it used to because people are starting to realize that there are real consequences to this fake news. They are becoming more skeptical. So again, if you watch Liz Cheney's face, she seems serious. She seems very skeptical. She is an example of Republicans changing their minds. If you didn't think that was happening, notice Liz Cheney is there. So a percentage of the Congress people represent a percentage of the United States. Liz represents the beginning of that shift. But it will get wider as they proceed. So these hearings are making a real difference. They are brilliantly conducted. I'm glad to say that finally they've figured out that they need to make the Netflix approach, you know, make these small, digestible, and exciting, and place them in such a way and keep it secret. I mean, would you watch the Game of Thrones if you knew the ending? No. So they finally figured out that they should keep some of the information secret so people will be getting the information directly as opposed through some kind of political filter. All right. So my next question is about Trump. What is happening for him? Is he facing justice? And will he face justice? So his peace of mind is completely under attack. Just in a psychological sense, this is a man who is under being constantly barraged. He doesn't even have the power to confront DeSantis at this point. Now, that is a change. Even from a year ago, that is a huge shift. And DeSantis, he's kind of a mini Trump, but he doesn't have that much power. People who went for Trump and want to sort of compromise character are going to go for DeSantis. But, he doesn't have the charisma that Trump had. He doesn't have the savvy. He doesn't know how to make issues divisive, as well as Trump, at least. So I'm not so worried about him. In a way, he is a great example of Trump's failures. And he's not offering anything new. People had became tired of Trump, and that's why he didn't win. So why would DeSantis win? There's one big fail for Donald. Already there's a person more Trump than him, more appealing to the Republicans than him. This is not making Trump happy. It's making him psychotic in his worry that he will face charges. And really the question is, will he face charges? It's going to be a journey. It's not going to happen right away. There are lots of legal roadblocks that he's going to attempt to put in the way. Keep in mind, Republicans don't want him to win. He's dividing the party. He's hoarding all the money. If all that money that Trump took for his campaign was returned to the Republicans, where would they spend it? They'd probably spend it on another candidate, or they would put it in the economy of the state where they live, right? So it is to the Republicans' benefit that Trump go down. So do not underestimate this. Maybe they're not saying it, but everybody wants Trump in jail. So is he going to go to jail? I'm just watching steps by steps. There's, depositions, there's judges, there's lawyers, there's just like step after step. Now that's frustrating for you and me, but you can imagine losing is extremely frustrating for Trump and his team. Also, once they get hold of that money, Trump is losing out. He doesn't have much money for, when I say get hold of the money, I mean the illegal campaign contributions. That is the first line of attack, because if that money can be frozen, Trump cannot use it. And that money is locked up. It's locked up so Republicans can't use it. This is and should be the first line of attack. It also means Trump doesn't have money to pilfer, can't steal money for lawyers. This is creating a real problem. The only people who are working with him aren't very talented lawyers anyway. And those who are, there appears to be one guy who is somewhat talented, is really wanting to get paid in advance. He also doesn't want to go to jail. So will Trump face charges? I see a judge in a robe. It's interesting. I don't know what this means, but he kind of opens the rope so that you see that his real clothes. Ooh, you know what? He was wearing red underneath the robes, but his clothing has changed to blue. This looks good to me. I mean, it makes me feel like even the judge has changed his mind about Donald Trump. And Trump is inevitably going to attack that judge. So the judge is also going to be somewhat irritated and resentful. Okay, so this time I'm not necessarily seeing not seeing a jail cell. What I see looks more like, a hospital for crazy people. It has barbed wire at the top. It has fencing. Oh, but he does appear in an orange jumpsuit. So Spirit, once more, is he going to jail? No, I still get a yes. Is this a literal jail or just like a figurative jail? Is this just a jail in his head? When I ask this question, Trump reaches for the fencing and it's electrified and goes, he gets electrocuted. Again, this means to me that he's gonna go there. This is a yes. I'm seeing a jury. And there's a lady on the jury, and she gives me the feeling like she used to support Trump, but she's absolutely shocked at the evidence. Like she's going like, oh, I like this. I think this is a good thing. Once people are forced to view the evidence, not through the lens of Fox News, but when they are confronted directly with the evidence, they are much more likely to see the truth. This woman's crying. And part of it's crying because she feels like she made a mistake about Trump. She was wrong about him all along. And part of it is the sympathy that she feels for some of Trump's victims. Yeah, a man stands up. He points to Trump. And he seems to be saying that he's guilty. The judge seems very serious. The judge also seems convinced. This judge is giving me the feeling that he understands the incredible importance of the role of the presidency and the role in our democracy. So again, I'm going to say, I feel like Trump is going to go to jail. He will be punished. Last question is Herschel Walker. If you noticed on Sheila's show, I saw him and I'm seeing him again with a pink glass. It looks like a Cosmopolitan, it's in the sort of funny V-shaped glass that you have when you have a martini. He's watching a show from a distance, almost like he's in a theater. The theater has red velvet, places to put your elbows and things. So I'm thinking it's very, a nice theater. He's watching from a distance, but he's surprised because he's called to the front of the theater so that he can answer questions. And he's really bad at answering questions. There's the glass that he had is broken, and there's little bits and pieces of glass around him. That is just a question of time before he steps on them. He's like on a stage. There's the glass, and he's just watching the pieces of glass like, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. This is his past. Yeah, the more Walker talks, the more trouble he gets in. seeing Warnock, I think he's the guy who is in opposition to Walker for the position of senator. And Walker's carved out a bit of, Warnock has carved out a bit of Walker, almost like a curve inside his ring. And Warnock appears to be doing better and better. And I've been told, and I'm being told right now, that this is not definitive. It's not finished yet. We don't yet know what is going to happen. And not necessarily are we able to accurately predict with 100% certainty, even 85% certainty, what will happen in this race. But my advice is to get him talking. Or you get him talking, the better. Because he will step all over those little bits and pieces of glass. And Warnock should get out and talk as well. Warnock should do his best to get on television whenever he can and press and press and press, ask him the questions, call him out, make sure that he is in a position where he has to talk. That is, Herschel Walker has to talk. It's going to be challenging. Walker knows how bad a speaker he is, so he's going to try to stay indoors. But this just lets Warnock know he's got to talk and talk and talk and talk. Warnock needs to go on the offensive for this to work. He needs to be aggressive. It's not certain, but there is becoming a greater and greater chance that Walker will lose. Right now, it's almost looking like a 50-50, but things will continue to change. So let's see. Let's just get my first guess here. Is he going to win? He's looking disappointed. I'm going to say the chances are getting a little slim with each day. Notice that this is a lesson here. When Democrats go out loud, when they go out aggressive, they have greater possibilities of winning. They have to assert themselves. Warnock has to come out and become a familiar face. He has to go out and make it clear how important elections are. He has to show what Democrats are made of and show that they can be powerful too. Thanks so much for watching.